Come on, pull. There. Together again. Sort of.
There's an inscrutable quality to Transistor that makes it so easy to get lost in. Everything has a soft glow, making the world feel ethereal and filled with ghosts, which makes sense given the game's story. A great catastrophe has happened in Cloudbank, the city where Transistor is set, and relentless predatory life forms roam the streets, attacking anything they see. These organisms are part of a collective known as the Process, and it's acting like a cancer, growing and consuming until there's nothing left.
Block party up ahead. Here we go.
The Process's motivation and who's behind it remain largely a mystery throughout most of the game. Until the very end, it's easy to feel like you barely have a grip on the plot, but that seems to be the point. Transistor almost stubbornly refuses to give any easy answers. The lack of information is hardly a criticism, however. It wants you to poke and prod, to uncover its mysteries for yourself.
Do me a favor. Don't let me go.
Similarly, the game throws you into combat without much explanation. It all revolves around freezing time and planning actions, not unlike classic games such as Knights of the Old Republic and Baldur's Gate. Every action, including movement, consumes part of the turn meter, and once that meter is depleted, you're completely defenseless until it fills up again. Because you're so vulnerable after executing a series of commands, it's just as important to think about defense as it is offense during a turn. If left out in the open, your health will get chewed up quickly as you wait for the meter to refill.
Now I want to know what's in door number 2.
It won't take long to acquire more skills than you know what to do with. Every skill can be used in one of 3 ways, as an active ability, an upgrade, or a passive ability. All 4 active abilities are assigned a button, and these serve as your primary tools. Some active abilities are rather straightforward, such as a simple melee and long-range attack, but others are a bit more elaborate. One lets you summon a cybernetic canine companion who you can control independently that bites whatever's in its way. Even if you don't like a particular skill as an active ability, none of them are worthless. Each active ability can have up to 2 upgrades, which modify how they work. Adding the Get skill to your long-range attack draws an enemy toward you, allowing for close-range follow-ups. Skills can also be used as passive abilities, which provide constant benefits, such as more health.
Next stop, high rise.
At first, the sheer number of ways you can use skills is a bit overwhelming, and it's easy to configure an ineffective setup. But the game does an excellent job of incentivizing you to explore. At several points, the composition of enemies significantly changes, necessitating a different approach. Defeat will also force you to switch things up. If you lose all of your health and the turn gauge isn't full, your most valuable skill will be overloaded, meaning you can't use it until after fighting your way through a couple of checkpoints.
We still hear you, okay?
In other games, it's easy to make it to the end without exploring all of your tactical options, adopting a sort of whatever-works method. By the end of Transistor, you'll have a thorough understanding of the combat, making you feel more like an adept tactician rather than just someone who happened to stumble their way to the credits. For those that really want to push themselves, a new mode called Recursion unlocks after finishing the story. Essentially a variation on New Game Plus, the mode lets you keep all of your previously unlocked abilities, but to increase the challenge, the types of things you fight will change each time you play. Expect to fight endgame enemies in the very first area. It isn't just increasingly difficult fights that will have you experimenting with skills. Although your weapon, the Transistor, looks like nothing more than a weird futuristic sword, it can actually absorb the souls of the recently deceased. All of your available skills were once people, and by equipping these skills in different ways, you learn more about them. To get a complete story, the skill must be used as an active ability, an upgrade, and a passive ability.
Hi. You okay? I see. Sure. She wants to come along. We can use her.
Although many of these stories aren't essential to understanding the overall plot, they're all very well written and fascinating in their own right. One of the wayward souls was a former sky painter, someone that can literally shape the sun, clouds, and stars in whatever way they see fit. Another was a former fashionista whose complicated relationship with drugs is both tragic and surprisingly true to life.
Think I'll go where it suits me. Moving out to the country.
Because Transistor rarely gives you a lot of information about what's going on, it's less like a traditional narrative and more like a world that's slowly taking shape. The character vignettes offer deeply personal insight into that world, giving it life. On their own, these stories are nothing but fascinating asides, but together they create a singular tone, one of a society that's fallen from grace. Besides the stories, your other main source of information is the Transistor itself, which has its own voice. In an almost identical fashion to Supergiant's first game, Bastion, the Transistor acts as a constant narrator, commenting on events as they happen. While it isn't as inventive as it originally was in Bastion, the trick still works. Hearing the Transistor react to even your most minute actions makes you think about what you're doing, causing you to feel more like an actual character rather than a player controlling someone else.
So, don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this.
Amidst all of the flush color and ornate architecture is a pervasive stillness that's both beautiful and unnerving. Darren Korb's outstanding soundtrack accentuates nearly every single moment. At times, it's quiet with hardly more than soft piano and a lone acoustic guitar. It'll then switch to hard pulsating drums interlaced with weird accordion-like sounds. Collectively, the music makes Cloudbank simultaneously grotesque and idyllic. Transistor's unique approach to storytelling is appreciated, but it isn't without fault. Because the game mostly gives you breadcrumbs of information throughout, when it's time to wrap things up, everything feels rushed. Your interactions with the main villain happen too quickly, with him saying a lot of words that, while important, come all at once. The final confrontation is also a letdown. The game throws in a clever twist that just doesn't work out, making it rather anticlimactic. Despite some reservations with the ending, Transistor is captivating in ways that few other games can manage. It creates a place that we wanted to be a part of, learn more about, and most importantly, didn't want to leave. Transistor isn't something you'll forget about immediately after finishing it. Instead, it's one that you'll wish you could play again for the first time.
Sea monster fresh from the bay. Flatbread delivery still going strong. Not so bad when it's cold. Not that I know anymore. Help yourself, I'm good.